I'm Jax Meyer, and today I'll be reading the first chapter of A Marine's Conflict, Book 4 in the Marine's Heart series. And this book is actually co-written with my friend Elle Armstrong. And a disclaimer, I don't do accents, so when we get to a character who has an accent, she's not going to have one. Sorry, not a narrator. I hope you enjoy it either way. So, Chapter 1, Mags, March 10th, 2003. Meg's footsteps, normally sure and steady as she ran, faltered at the sight of a curvaceous blonde leaving her neighborhood bookstore. Nothing about the woman screamed gay, but that didn't stop Megs from enjoying the view. After all, too often she couldn't risk even a look. She waited for traffic to pass at the curb and indulged herself unnoticed. The woman had already opened her novel, reading as she walked. Glasses, gray pencil skirt, classy blue blouse, and perfectly tight bun all screamed nerdy librarian. Are we into librarians now? Damn, it's been a while. There was something about the woman that held her attention. Before Mags passed, her gaze lingered on the stranger's expression. Anticipation, excitement, eagerness, all directed at the book she held. When was the last time a woman looked at her that way? Meg's belly tightened in anticipation of something that certainly wouldn't happen today. Even if the mystery woman were gay, and Megs could work her charm, Megs was a sweaty mess 45 minutes into the evening run designed to purge a shitty Monday. With the road now clear, Megs continued on her way, with one last glance back to catch the curves of the mystery woman's backside. Instead of work frustration, arousal stirred in her belly. More pleasant, but equally problematic in its own way. To clear her mind, Megs kicked into a near sprint to finish the last half-mile home. She'd moved into her small one-bedroom house in the San Diego suburbs a month earlier. With few possessions, she was already settled in, boxes stored in the closet for whenever her next move was ordered. After spending the last 6 years on the humid East Coast, she hoped her next transfer was far off. By the time she'd arrived in her front yard, Mags gasped for air, lungs burning despite her high level of fitness. She walked up and down the block until her respiration rate slowed enough to speak if she wished. As the oxygen returned, so did thoughts of the mystery woman. All that effort for nothing. More running wouldn't help, so Mags went through cool-down stretches in her tidy front yard and gave in to the distraction. Why this woman? She was attractive, but there was more to it. What grown adult got that excited over a book that they couldn't wait until they were home to read it? And why wasn't that a turn-off? She'd clearly gone too many months without getting laid. You have rules for a reason, Marine. Ah, yes, the rules. With the don't ask, don't tell policy firmly in place, Mag's rules kept her and her career safe. Her rules were simple. No dating. No heavy drinking. Civilians only as far from the base as possible. Provide as little information about herself as possible. Hell, if she could get what she needed without leaving the bar, even better. Especially if the bar was populated with immature, college-aged women. Megs had been assigned to Marine Corps Air Station Miramar for just over a year, and in that time only risked the bars a handful of times. Her last time out was too close a call. From the door, she could see far enough inside to recognize a few of the women from base. Megs hadn't been seen, but the near miss was like ice to her libido. The mystery woman wasn't holding keys. Meg's now recovered libido helpfully supplied. Could she be local? But that would be breaking a rule that had a purpose. If Megs missed a red flag and a hookup tried to find her, distance offered a layer of protection. And if there were no red flags? Mystery woman was older, most likely in her 30s. She may read with the enthusiasm of a kid, but she didn't appear immature. That left the risk of being seen. But this neighborhood wasn't a common choice for Marines. Nor were bookstores for that matter. If they were, the Commandant wouldn't have to provide a suggested reading list that 99% of her Marines ignored. Perhaps it was time to acquaint herself with the bookstore when more appropriately attired. She had a plausible cover story, professional development, at a location that didn't scream she was a lesbian, the bookstore, with the hope of seeing the mystery woman again. If she did, she'd begin the search for red flags. The bookstore wasn't busy the next night, making it easy to determine that Meg's mystery woman was not around. That morning, Megs had printed the current Commandant's reading list. Her first thought was to ensure her cover story was truly in place. But as she searched the shelves for each book, she remembered how much she enjoyed a good book. During her 6 years as a drill instructor, her rare free time was spent eating and sleeping, and sometimes only one of those. Reading was a luxury she couldn't afford. Now she was in the fleet again, with a reasonably consistent schedule and little to fill her time with. Maybe she'd spend more time reading for fun. It was far less risky than making new friends. One thing she hadn't been told when accepting her drill instructor position was how difficult it would be to return to the fleet after years away. She was a female staff NCO, a minority within a minority. Not being allowed to discuss her sexuality placed yet another barrier between her and other Marines. Perhaps that was the real reason she couldn't let the woman go. Mags was lonely. After choosing a few history books, she found the science fiction section. Ender's Game immediately drew her attention, so she added that to her pile along with Aragon. It was hard to ignore a book with dragons and warriors. By the time she checked out, with no sign of the blonde from yesterday, Meg's stomach made it clear she needed to head home and eat, rather than hang around the coffee shop reading. Her mind warred with itself throughout the 10-minute walk back to her place. Megs wanted to pretend that she wasn't disappointed to leave without a sighting of the blonde, but she wasn't deterred. In fact, she looked forward to returning Saturday, when she could try the coffee shop. It was possible the woman was just visiting, and Megs would never see her again, but if she did live nearby, their paths would cross. No one who looked at a book like she did would stay that way for long. Saturday morning, after a long, relaxing run through Mission Trails Park and a shower, Megs walked to the bookstore, ready to try the coffee that had tempted her earlier in the week. Megs was not a coffee snob, far from it. But passing on quality coffee while reading a good book on a Saturday would be foolish. She stuck with a medium brew with only a touch of sugar and cream, and settled in with Aragon, which she was a third of the way through. Each sip of her surprisingly smooth coffee provided her the perfect excuse to glance around the store for the mystery woman, once again nowhere to be found. Why did she continue thinking about a woman she saw for at most 5 seconds? There were other women in the shop now, yet none grabbed her attention like the blonde from Monday. Perhaps this was idle curiosity. The woman's unguarded expression contrasted with her reserved dress and hair, and contradictions were always intriguing. Then there was the book. What was she reading to cause her face to light up like that? Most likely, all Megs needed was to have a single conversation with her. She would satisfy her curiosity and leave it at that. The chances of meeting an attractive, single woman who was also interested in Megs, all while being discreet, at her neighborhood bookstore were remarkably small. But to risk any type of relationship, even a purely physical one with a local woman, required each of those qualities. When she laid it out like that, Megs wondered why she bothered trying. Megs was 13 years into a planned 20-year career. 13 years without any significant romantic relationships, just meaningless hookups. All because they were too great a risk in an era when being anything other than straight got you kicked out of the military. Suck it up, Marine. You chose this life. What alternative do you have? The following Saturday afternoon, Megs brought Ender's Game to the bookstore, deciding to make coffee and reading her new Saturday routine. Megs nodded to the barista before scanning the room. Her eyes landed on a woman reading alone at a table. A blonde woman with a familiar profile. Normally unflappable, Meg's heart rate increased enough for her to notice. What was it about this woman? She didn't even have that intriguing expression on her face now. Time for some recon. Megs made her way to the barista, ordered a drip coffee, added cream and sugar, and found a spot along the wall where she could read and observe without looking creepy. Already Megs noticed differences. Gone was the tight bun, replaced with a messier one, but not one that said she just rolled out of bed. No makeup, not that it was required. Her dark blue, short-sleeved blouse paired with her lighter jeans in a style that was feminine but casual. Definitely not a style Megs had cared to master, yet visually appreciated, especially the way this blouse in particular hinted at the curves underneath. The mystery woman put effort into her appearance, even on a day off, but not in a way that screamed high maintenance. Whether she'd been looking for attention or not, she'd grabbed Megs, for a second time. The woman glanced up, brows furrowed, as she peered around the room. Megs dropped her eyes before she was caught, opening her book to a random page. At least her book was upright. Way to play it cool, Marine. Once the blonde's attention returned to her book, Megs found her correct page and took a sip of her coffee. She peeked occasionally, not lingering until the woman's brows relaxed as she read. Megs looked more closely this time, and saw not only the textbook laid open, but a paperback open on top of it. Odd. Was she multitasking, or reading something she'd prefer to hide? Whatever the intention, Megs had her opener. What she didn't have was the timing. If she knew one thing about readers, it was never to interrupt them. She focused on her own book, glancing up intermittently in hopes an opening would present itself. After a few pages, she raised her gaze again, but before she could look away, the woman whipped her head around and looked over her reading glasses right at Megs. Whoops, not so subtle after all. She didn't look upset, just puzzled, so Megs raised her mug without breaking eye contact and offered a playful smirk. The way the woman looked her over placed her solidly on the sapphic end of the Kinsey scale. With that crucial question answered, Megs allowed her smirk to become a confident smile that she hoped hid the excitement stirring in her belly. When the blonde finally looked away, Megs knew she wouldn't have to wait much longer to approach her. Megs downed the last of her coffee and watched the woman from behind her book again. With a few deep breaths, Megs managed to calm her body's reactions. When the woman looked up again, Megs simply winked. She didn't miss the woman's breathing becoming shallow and fast as color rose to her cheeks. Maybe the odds of finding someone in the bookstore weren't so small after all. The question, however, remained. Could she be discreet? No woman, no matter how attractive, was worth her career. If they were in a bar, Megs would offer to buy her a drink and look for any red flags as they talked. They were in a coffee shop, so not all that different. Just as Megs set her book down, the blonde stood and knocked hard against her table, sending her book skidding towards Megs. The woman scrambled for the textbook, while Megs picked up the paperback. She stood and was finally able to peek at the cover. Safe Harbor by Radcliffe. Megs flipped it over, but only had time to register the words Gay Teenager and Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Marine Corps Reserve before her attention was drawn back to the event playing out before her. The blonde grasped the larger book and stood fast, slightly off balance, which placed her within Meg's personal space. Her eyes took significantly longer to work their way from Meg's stomach up to her chest, all of which she knew was on display thanks to her tight white tank top. When the woman's eyes finally met hers, Megs let her amusement show. "Hey," Meg said. "Hi there," the woman said with an unexpected accent. She looked away, biting her bottom lip in a way that Megs found adorable. Recognizing her discomfort, Megs took half a step back. With the book clenched in her hands, Megs could finally see the textbook that had remained under the paperback all morning. Then she checked the back of the paperback in her hands, skimming the full blurb to confirm it was very gay. "Are you actually into," Megs gestured to the textbook, "mathematical methods for physics and engineering, or is it to distract onlookers from your romance novel?" Megs handed her the paperback with a hint of a smile on her lips. The woman placed it on top of the textbook and pulled both to her chest, almost crushing the reading glasses she must have hung off the top of her blouse while Megs was strategizing. "As a matter of fact, not only am I into it, as you so imprecisely put it, I teach the subject." Megs ignored her defensiveness. "Seriously? That's intriguing." "You think so?" The woman's question was laced with sarcasm. "I do. Beautiful women are a dime a dozen in California, but beautiful and smart? You've got my attention." The woman's cheeks turned a deeper red. "So why hide the romance novel? Afraid people won't take you seriously? Are you in the closet?" Megs watched her steadily, awaiting an answer to her purposely forward question, designed to root out at least one red flag early. After a beat, the woman replied, "Well, I guess I could tell you, but then—" A non-answer. Not as easy to read as Meg's first thought. "You'd have to kill me, huh?" "That is correct." The woman smiled and relaxed her shoulders. Meg studied her. "I doubt a math teacher has the skills to take me out. Are you a spy? With that accent, you'd have to be MI6, right?" When the woman looked away, slouching, Meg's worried she'd made a mistake. "Or I could be completely wrong. Where are you from?" "No, you're not wrong. I'm from London, Notting Hill to be exact." The woman remained unexpectedly cautious. "Oh, like the movie? I'd love to go there, though I doubt I'd be as lucky as Hugh Grant and run into a beautiful actress in a bookstore." "Well, I lived there nearly all my life, and it never happened to me. I mean, I never met anyone in a bookstore that I was interested in." "Until now?" Megs held the woman's gaze, charging the air between them. The woman didn't need to respond. Her answer was written in her dark blue eyes. She did, however, need a name. "I'm Megs, by the way." "Oh, right. Elaine." Megs offered her hand, remembering to soften her grip in time for Elaine to grasp it with more confidence than their conversation thus far would imply. The tingling warmth of Elaine's touch wasn't lost on Megs. "That's a name you don't hear often," Elaine said. "What's it short for?" Meg suppressed her wince, but she'd long ago learned how to navigate this question. "Margaret. Do I look like a Margaret to you?" Elaine took the opportunity to check Megs out again, with less hesitation this time. "No, that name doesn't really suit you." "Exactly. Nor am I a Maggie. Megs works, at least among my non-work friends." Megs couldn't remember the last woman she'd shared her rank or last name with. That information was earned. Elaine looked down at the floor and started wringing her hands. What had she said to make Elaine nervous all of a sudden? Elaine rubbed the bridge of her nose and looked up, but seemed unable to make eye contact with Mags now. You can. If you'd like to, I mean, would you like to join me? I was just about to get another drink and could use the distraction before I read this book in one sitting. Thanks to years of practice, Mags didn't let show just how amusing she found flustered Elaine. Sure, but let me get the drinks. What'll it be? So that was Chapter 1 from A Marine's Conflict by Jax Meyer and Elle Armstrong. Note, this is in final edits, so a few words may change between now and July when the book is released. Either way, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.